Good morning, everyone. This is Nathan Lindorf with The Rational Independent. Today's Reddit rant is about Paul Ryan. Hey, remember that Paul Ryan guy? He was relevant for like 2 minutes, 10 years ago, whatever. Okay. For those of you who haven't spent much time in the Wayback Machine recently, Paul Ryan was Mitt Romney's VP pick when he failed in his election bid against Obama, 2012, I believe. So 11 years. After that, Paul Ryan stayed in Congress for a while, Speaker of the House, but he's been out of the news for quite a long while. And so I was kind of surprised to see his name pop up, but here we are. From Salon, Paul Ryan goes off on podcast. Trump's not a conservative. He's an authoritarian narcissist. Oh no, not bad words, not mean words. That's really creepy. I didn't even realize. Sorry. Sometimes my brain goes squirrel, but let's look at this picture. Paul Ryan speaking next to a portrait of himself. So in an article where the headline is that he's calling someone else a narcissist, the headlining photo is Paul Ryan speaking in front of a portrait of Paul Ryan. Trump's got his personality flaws, but I just thought that's what you call ironic. Former Republican House Speaker, by the way, there's not a lot of depth today, not a lot of seriousness. This is like one step up from a gossip rag. They're basically just enjoying the fact that Republicans are snipping at each other. Former Republican House Speaker Paul Ryan, during a podcast appearance, denounced Donald Trump while praising, you guessed it, Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, who are two Republican congresspeople who have been booted out of Congress because their base doesn't like what they did, and were part of the Democrats' efforts to go after Trump for opposing the former president despite the cost to their careers. This is interesting. The Fox Corporation board members' comments. Oh, Paul Ryan is on the board of Fox News Corporation? That can't be relevant at all. Interesting that they put that in there. Came during November interview. Look, Trump's not a conservative. Because after all, Paul Ryan is famous for being a true conservative. This is why I don't love labels, because they mean different things to different people. If you ask 10 different people to define conservative, you're going to get 10 different answers. That makes the word basically useless. Why even use the word? He's not a true conservative. He's an authoritarian narcissist. So I think that they basically called him out for that. He's a populist authoritarian narcissist. He doesn't view the world in liberal/conservative terms. In other words, he's presenting, Paul Ryan, that in his perspective, conservatism and liberalism are opposite ends of the spectrum. This is why labels just get so messy so fast. Okay, he thinks in an authoritarian way, and he's been able to get a big chunk of the Republican base to follow him because he's the culture warrior, says Ryan, who faced criticism from both Democrats and Republicans for not strongly opposing Trump in 2016 or through his presidency. So because he didn't fight against Trump hard enough, he's getting criticism, and that's the only thing Paul Ryan has received. No, I think he's received criticism for some other things. But in this worldview of Salon, you only get in trouble if you don't hate Trump enough. It's like an article of faith. It's weird. There has to be some line, some principle that is so important to you that you're just not going to cross, so that when you're brushing your teeth in the morning, look yourself in the mirror, you like what you see. When I think of principled politician, and Paul Ryan married his brand to Mitt Romney, so the two go hand in hand. They were on the ticket, so they shared a ticket. When I think of principled politician, well, really, no names come to mind, but Paul Ryan is definitely not in that contention. Neither is Mitt Romney. I might agree with him on a few policy choices, but the simple fact is, part of the establishment. He's part of the Republican machine. He was Speaker of the House. He was vice presidential nominee. He is part of the swamp. He is part of, if you think of the swamp as a colloquial term for establishment power, the swamp has Republican components and Democratic components, and even a few independent components. The swamp has a tremendous number of components that are not even elected officials. Most of the swampy type behavior, again, I'm using the colloquialism, but I think it evokes it properly. Much of the swamp monsters are in the administrative branch in administrative agencies where they are basically long-term bureaucrats. where they enforce government power in an authoritarian way, and they are unaccountable to the American people. So from the Salon perspective that supports Democratic politics, okay, the mainstream media loves Democrat politics. And frankly, a lot of the media is part of the swamp. And I throw Fox News in there too. And what do you know? Look, if Fox News is mixed in with the swamp and you have a Fox News board member, well, it makes sense that, yeah, all of these things go together. One hand washes the other. People on the left, people in Salon, this woman that's writing this article, okay, they're presenting the idea as though Paul Ryan is this virtuous crusader, someone who should be taken seriously, someone who is representative of what the other side believes. And from a political perspective, she's not wrong, because he's a Republican mouthpiece and she's a Democrat mouthpiece. And the thing that I want to point out is that to someone standing outside the swamp and looking at these two people, these two mouthpieces, they're basically the same. It's the swamp on both sides. They're all part of the same incestuous, self-profit-seeking system. It's nasty. History, Ryan concluded, will be kind to those people who saw what was happening and called it out, even though it was at the expense of their well-being. It's Paul Ryan. If Paul Ryan believes that there needs to be principle that's so important to you that you don't cross it, that sounds like someone who says what he believes and believes what he says and values integrity and wants to take a stand and stick to it. Let's go in the Wayback Machine.
Tonight, Donald Trump is winning over one of his most prominent skeptics.
Wow!
House Speaker Paul Ryan announcing in an op-ed that he will vote for Trump this fall, writing, "It's no secret that he and I have our differences," but adding, "The reality is, on the issues that make up our agenda, we have more common ground than disagreement."
And then the rest of this video is him fighting with Hillary. So when Donald Trump was a candidate, Paul Ryan endorsed him. Paul Ryan said, he's our guy. We should vote for him. Do you know why Paul Ryan did that? Because that was the Republican Party's decision. And as an establishment party animal, Paul Ryan fell in lockstep and said, all right, this is the position I'm taking today. But don't worry, he's a man of principle who likes what he sees when he brushes his teeth in the morning. Paul Ryan, who was at the time not only Congressman, but also Speaker of the House, said this.
Last night, and again this morning, I spoke with President-elect Donald Trump, and I congratulated him on his great victory. We talked about the work ahead of us and the importance of bringing this country together. Let me just say, this is the most incredible political feat I have seen in my lifetime.
He blathers on for quite a bit, but that's the piece we're going to be. So let's see, that was 6-7 years ago? Okay. 2016? Yeah, that sounds about right. Here we have the gossip of Paul Ryan, who hasn't been relevant in years, coming out and saying Donald Trump's a terrible, evil, no good, bad orange man. But by the way, it's important that politicians have to have some line, some principle that you're just not going to cross. Like, maybe you screwed up when you endorsed him. Do you want to go ahead and say that? Or is that a little too strong? You don't want to point to your mistakes. Not a ton of meat here, but as we do, we're going to dive into the Reddit comments and see what the regular folks have to say, because they're the ones that put this to the top of Reddit. Which did not stop him from supporting him just long enough to get the most skewed tax cuts ever in favor of the undeserving rich. So there is a lot of kind of that communist class envy situation that goes along in the Reddit comment thread, so there's no surprise there. But they're also pointing out the hypocrisy, and the interesting thing is, Paul Ryan did initially support him, and one of the first things Donald Trump did was pass a massive tax cuts. Really one of his only legislative accomplishments in 4 years. Paul Ryan benefited from that. Honestly, I don't mind at all pointing out the hypocrisy, although the concept of the undeserving rich is problematic. The bad guys won, again. Now they're looking in the mirror, hating what they see and blaming Democrats for it. Keep in mind, these are some of the top comments. 15,000 people have voted on this article, and a lot of them have commented and upvoted. Let's see, this comment got 89 upvotes, okay? I think Fox News is starting to realize what a one-party authoritarian rule under Trump might be like, and they're not liking what they see. Sure, they get to be the government mouthpiece and take over all the other news networks with their blueprint. But eventually the oligarchy is going to start getting thinned out. A power vacuum where a lot of people simply die and disappear because they might be traitors. Yeah, Russia and Belarus look cool to the GOP, but a lot of the right-wing elite start ending up dead and or ruined when a completely nuts authoritarian takes over. Also, fascism isn't profitable. Apple picks up and goes to Ireland, etc. Blue states and cities, best minds flee. That's crazy talk. Just throwing this out here. This person genuinely believes Trump is going to usher in this era of one-party authoritarian rule, that this is the end of our republic, that he's going to be a dictator and create an oligarchy, and that Fox News is going to be the government mouthpiece and then take over all the other news networks. That's an interesting claim. That's just something that's going to happen. Okay, perfect. But then, of course, as what happens with oligarchy, the oligarchy starts to get thinned out, which means you're talking about a criminal cabal of powerful people assassinating each other. You're talking as though this is real. This is a fever dream. This isn't going to happen. Trump, win or lose, this is not our future. I don't know what to tell you. But if this is what you're worried about, you're going to make some pretty crazy political decisions, and it's probably not going to lead us to good places. What I think is funny is, speaking of Paul Ryan, speaking of commenting on an article about Paul Ryan was the VP under Mitt Romney. And to take you into the Wayback Machine, when asked in a debate with Obama, Mitt Romney was asked, who do you think our greatest geopolitical adversary is in the world? Does anyone remember what Mitt Romney's answer was? Russia. Mitt Romney, supposedly in policy lockstep with Paul Ryan and the Republicans, was antagonistic to Russia, calling them out as a threat to the American political efforts around the world. Obama quipped in response, the 80s called, they want their foreign policy back. In other words, saying, why are you worried about Russia? They're not a problem. They're irrelevant. They're from the 80s. Don't worry about them. We have other bigger fish to fry. Which I actually kind of agree with, but that's another story. So in other words, the Republicans, the Republican ticket with Paul Ryan on it, were mocked for being antagonistic to Russia. And somehow that same politician, by this commenter, is part of a right-wing elite in the GOP that thinks Russia and Belarus look cool. You can't debate with crazy people. Let's just put it that way. You can't debate with crazy people. It doesn't work. And that is where we're going to wrap our Reddit rant for today. This is Nathan Lindorf with The Rational Independent. Good luck out there.